Hey everyone, this video is another part in our series about introspection. And this one's a big one. This is a big piece when it comes to self-awareness. So let's get into it. Now, I work with children and adults. So when I'm working with kids, I a lot of times come up with terms for things that maybe already exist, but I think are more fitting and age appropriate for my clients. And so because this comes up quite a lot, my term for it is tripwires. Tripwires are emotional pressure points. They are these areas of our psyche, our thoughts, our feelings that are more sensitive than other areas. We are more reactive when these things get broached or when a topic sort of circles around one of these tripwires. And a lot of times they cause a reaction in us that is just a little unexpected. So tripwires, these soft spots, these sensitive areas, it's really important to know where they are. This is very individual to you and to your experience. So we'll get into that in a little bit. How you're going to notice that you've hit a tripwire is that your reaction relative to the situation is going to be completely disproportionate. And this means it's going to be an outsized reaction to a minor thing. So a small topic comes up, you have a slightly negative interaction in this sense, or someone acts in a specific way, and what to anybody else without this tripwire would be a minor reaction, some annoyance, some frustration, maybe some communication, turns into a big reaction in you. This is the concept of the tripwire. And inherent to this idea, and why I prefer the term tripwire, is because they are really unexpected, at first, at least. The better that you get at this, at introspection, the more that you'll know of your tripwires and you can avoid them better. Or maybe when they get set off, you can react to them better. At first, a lot of times these tripwires will be unexpected, and we just have to take the time to track back what maybe caused it and what that sensitive area springs from. So tripwires cause these outsized reactions that aren't really appropriate and that you wouldn't see in someone else without that tripwire. I generally broadly categorize tripwires into three categories. That's specific, thematic, and relational. So I'll give some examples of each of these and we'll talk about them a little bit. So specific is something very specific that you've experienced before. It's very context or individual or action specific. Let's say that you grew up with an abusive father. You may develop a tripwire specific to men yelling. Or if you grew up in a family that uses certain phrases to invalidate you, like you're being dramatic, something like that, a certain phrase could be a specific tripwire because of your experience receiving that and it being a negative experience. So when we have these, and often it's repeated or severe, and we establish this tripwire, then future interactions that involve or sort of circle around that topic that the tripwire is relevant to, they become these areas that make us more tense. They make us more reactive. They impact us more than they would someone else. Those are a couple examples of specific tripwires. Now let's move on to the next category. The second is thematic. These are about more general themes or ideas or concepts that you've been exposed to, that you've built up a sort of dynamic around, or you've built up a complex about. Thematic can be tricky because it can be very generalized and you may be exposed to it a lot. But like everything, it's going to be related to your past experience. So maybe you have a thematic tripwire around pet neglect because you've seen this before or been exposed to it. And so it's more serious to you than maybe it would be to someone else. Of course, a lot of people would take that seriously, most I would hope, but something that causes a greater reaction out of you, sometimes even irrationally. Like there's this really good Portlandia sketch about a dog being left outside and two people overreacting to seeing this dog outside and saying it was abusive and all this stuff. And oh my God, get this dog an umbrella and some water.
Huh? There's an animal tied up to a piece of metal. I'm sure it wasn't born there.
How can you guys just sit there eating? If the Titanic was sinking right there, would you just ignore it? While you guys are eating, I will not be able to eat until this is resolved.
Hi, you seen this dog with the owner? You guys seen this? Guys, come on!
Hello? If anybody listening, this dog will not be a big dog in a big ring. Fine.
It's okay. She's upset. Kat is upset. I'll tell you something. We want our iced tea and our orange juice just like you do.
You fainted?
Oh, poor thing.
Where's the waitress?
And it turned out the owner was inside for a few minutes and it was fine. This would have been a tripwire for those people that seeing that pet out on the side of the road, that was that thematic tripwire for them that kind of sent them over the edge and caused an outsized reaction that no one around them was having. Maybe there's another thematic tripwire that you have related to sexism or related to elderly treatment or related to finances. I mean, they can be about all sorts of things. The third category that I place these tripwires under is relational. The thing about relational tripwires is that they can cause issues where they really shouldn't. So sometimes we have these tripwires that are built up from someone in our life, a parent growing up, a coach, a teacher, an uncle, a cousin, sibling, and we develop a tripwire around something that they do or the way that we're treated in a social space and in relationships. And sometimes when we develop this tripwire, it can cause these reactions that cause tension in our relationships where it shouldn't be. So let me give you an example. If it was common when you were growing up that your family members would often ignore you, intentionally ignore you, just outright refuse to give you that attention, whatever the reason, you were often ignored. Now, it's 10 years later, you're in a mostly happy relationship, and you say something to a partner, and they happen to be engrossed in their phone or a book or a game or something like that, and they don't answer you. Something swells up inside of you, and you interpret this in a way that doesn't give a lot of grace to your partner. They were momentarily distracted, and now they're suddenly facing decades worth of resentment or negative emotion that you've tied to this concept of being ignored. And so, even though they weren't intending to ignore you, it may have caused a reaction in you that was completely disproportionate, caused a lot of tension, led to a fight, all sorts of things like this. And so, when we're not mindful of our tripwires, we can cause this sort of spillover that impacts other people and causes these reactions that we eventually have to face. Like with everything, awareness comes first and change follows. So don't be too hard on yourself. When you notice these tripwires, just make a note of them. You're not going to respond perfectly that time. You're not going to respond perfectly the next 3 times. You may still have these outsized reactions, and that's fine. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to give ourselves grace to grow and to acknowledge the sensitivities that we have and work to make them a little less sensitive. So, knowing where our tripwires are is really important. And the more that you notice them, the better you can get at kind of tiptoeing over them and not setting off all these reactions that you don't want. Give yourself a little bit of grace today and every day. Notice these tripwires and then try to change them. Work hard to be aware, to overcome, and reach out to others if you need help. Thanks for watching.